Hi, and welcome to CSM TAC. I'm Peter Briggs, and today I'm going to have a discussion with a sports scientist called Dave Horrocks. Dave currently works for Manchester United and was an instrumental part of the British cycling team. We're going to talk about mental resilience and how sports science is worked and used within elite sport. Please like and subscribe to this channel if you're enjoying the content, and hopefully I will continue to give you some good content. So welcome back to CSM TAC. I'm here with Dave Horrocks. Dave has had a varied career doing a lot of sports science with clubs like Manchester United and elite teams like the British cycling team. And I'm glad to have him on board. Dave, can you just introduce yourself?
I can, yeah. I'm Dave Horrocks. I currently work as a consultant to Manchester United in terms of research and development and best practice as far as the football club goes, and looking for what's out there, what's next, and what the world will look like in 2023, 24 and beyond in terms of performance. And I have a background, as you said, Pete, in science, particularly the psychology of science, which is what I did my PhD in at UCLan and my degree and my master's some time ago, which was also conducted studying Sir Alex Ferguson's years at Manchester United, with a particular interest in serial winning and the processes and the people that create a culture and an environment in terms of being able to facilitate that and make it happen.
Thank you very much. So what are you doing at the moment, Dave? Where are you working at the moment?
I'm 3 days a week with Manchester United. A lot of that's remote, a lot of that's out in the field, visiting places or exploring different things. I can't reveal too much, but we're in the realms of testing certain things at the minute, which we've got to prove concept and get scientific data out of to be able to say, yes, this particular thing may have an effect, and it could be something that's beneficial to bring into your system or your environment. And spend a lot of time talking to other people in other sports. Member of the Leaders in Performance Institute, so that involves engaging with people from Aussie Rules football, UFC fighting, NFL, NBA, cricket, golf, all sorts of different sports, really. Just finding out what makes them tick. And it's a medium where these people can get together and share best practice, and you can take out of it what you think may help push you to another level, or explore things that might take you to another level.
So that's something that me and you were working on, wasn't it, at Burnley College, when we took away some of those leadership skills for some of the guys doing sports science, but you wanted a different aspect, in which I would bring in like the leadership army sort of style training.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much a replication of what we did. You've lived in a high pressure world, in the army, in the military police, and a lot of your life quite clearly involved leading, getting people from one place to another, or facilitating change, be that cultural or behavioural at individual or team unit level. And I think a lot of people out there in the world these days, they don't just live in silos, they will look outside. We've got so much available to us now, especially with the internet, and the pandemic's probably expedited this with the advent of Zoom. More and more people are talking. I'm not sure that many people are getting as much done, but they're certainly talking.
So whether they're listening or not,
yeah, that's right. But the availability is there now to find out as much as you possibly can. So if you're willing to commit and engage to it, you have every chance of taking yourself to another level, really.
So how important is learning from other sports to your job at Manchester United currently?
It varies. You can get certain sports that are going to clarify what you're doing without telling you anything new, but that's okay, because that is almost facilitation or a sort of pat on the back. It gives you that social strength to be able to, yeah, what I'm doing is right. I can believe in this, and it's worked somewhere else. So I'm going to carry on with that, because you might be at a different stage to them on that journey, or you might not yet have got the result that you've actually started what you're doing to look the result that you're looking for. But that might say, yeah, we're on the right path here, because it's worked for them.
One of the things that you do massively is understanding psyche in sport, don't you? So you wrote a dissertation, I'm guessing, on Gary Neville and his thought process when it comes to winning and his winning mentality. So I'm just wondering how you could explain how we fortify a winning mentality in sport.
Yeah, I mean, as part of the PhD, I had 2 published papers. They were published in the International Journal of Sports Science and Coaching. And you're right in what you say. One of those was a case study on Gary Neville. Now, Gary's pretty much won it all. One of the most successful players that's played for United and for his country. Won the Premier League, won the European Champions League, World Club Trophy as it was in the day. And I was interested in how he lives, really, and how he lived through that journey, how he conducts himself on a daily basis. So when you refer to psychology, it's sort of the existence of that person as a human being, not just simply what happens when you go to training and what happens in a game. Because there's clearly lots of pressure and lots of demands on that. And there's fantastic performances we can now see at the end of it. But how do you actually live to be able to deliver this and prepare and practice in this way? So that's what I really wanted to dig into. And Gary, to be honest, I would say is one of the most diligent and prepared athletes that I've ever seen out there, in terms of the work ethic and specifics that he would put in to get ready for each game. And you're talking a player that probably at the height of his career played every 3.5 days. So you've got quite fast turnaround in that. And literally to be ready and try and get yourself in optimal state repeatedly over, I guess, around about 40 to 45 weeks a year actually takes some doing. And that's what I was interested in, really. Who is this guy?
Okay, so what was your in key takeaways? I know it's a huge document which I've read, and it was fascinating. But I'm just wondering about your key takeaways, especially about mental resilience.
Mental resilience. He would prepare quite specifically for what he's going into. So each team's different. You could be playing Everton one week, Barcelona the next week, Milan the next, Burnley the next. And each is a different challenge for a different reason. You've got different formations, you've got different environments that you're going into. You could play at night, you could play at day, you could play on Sunday afternoon. So he'd take that into consideration. Then he'd look at who he was going to come up against in particular. He was a right back, so you're facing forwards, wingers, wide midfielders, possibly fullbacks that are going to come. And also the people behind them, or that pull the strings, the guys that he's directly up against, they're receiving balls from central defenders, goalkeepers, or switch balls from the other side. So what does that look like? Is there any consistency in the pattern? Do they tend to play the ball in front of the person he's marking? Do they tend to play it over the top for them to run onto? Do they go deep to receive it? Or do they receive it higher up the pitch and put him under pressure in his own half quite quickly? And the challenge is different every single match. So he would take responsibility for his own training, as well as being involved in the team training and the unit training. And he'd ask questions about that. He'd set up particular scenarios that were context relative to who was facing next. He'd check it, perhaps with his teammates, perhaps with his family, which gives you that sort of social facilitation and support. Check it with his manager, check it with his coaches. And it's a complete no stone unturned mentality. So that there are no surprises when you go out onto that pitch. You've done everything you possibly can And then on top of that, he would turn it into a positive. It's not about just stopping the opponent. It would be heavily focused to, he's playing for Manchester United. We are Manchester United. And it's about us. What are we going to do to hurt them? What are we going to do to put them on the back foot? Yes, we understand and respect who they are and what they could possibly do to us, but do we just defend against it, or do we counter? Do we put them in uncomfortable positions themselves to stop this happening in the first place? So it's a very solution-focused mentality, and a very attacking mentality, really, that then in turn has a collective belief between the sort of unit that he'd worked with and then the team as a whole. And they sort of had this mantra, if you want for a better word, that it's about us, it's about Manchester United. Be aware of the opponent, but don't fear them. We're going to win every game. It doesn't matter who we're playing. It could be Burnley, it could be Barcelona, but the ideology is the same. We're playing to win.
So you said there about checking like scenarios. Are you talking about something like Teacup, like the Clive Woodward thought process?
What he'd do, he would take video footage, which is what you'd get in football, and teams get standard presentations, which might be 8 to 10 minutes, that give you sort of the generics of the patterns. But this was back in the day when video analysis had first come out, and Gary used to ask for a full 45 minutes and watch the whole thing and just work it out himself, really, or clarify things. And just simply watch it and make mental notes. You know, nothing too elaborate. We've not got a structured document here where we're ticking things off left, right, and centre. It is quite literally getting comfort in terms of what you're going into, and then understanding what you need to be able to do.
Cool. That's brilliant. I think that's really interesting to see how an elite sportsman would deal with stuff like that, because I think nowadays everything's moving towards like a Bielsa style, which is everything's documented, everything is like structured, there's all like tick boxes. He knows a lot about every single player he comes up against. But I think how you were describing Gary's way of dealing with it was a little bit more natural.
He's very self-sufficient. I mean, you only have to, if you follow his Twitter feed now and look at his comments in the media, the way he runs his business and the way he handles politics, which he gets involved in, he still looks for evidence. So anything he comments on, if he's pressed, he will be able to back it up or support the argument, which I think is very important. And that's clearly something that's transferred from his football career. That then gives him, I would say, that psychological confidence. I mean, I've not asked him this, but when you see him speak, everything he delivers with ultimate belief in what he's saying. And that comes from preparation. And I'm aware from some of the people on the production teams at Sky that he was a bit of a shock to them in terms of, can I have this? Can I have that? Can you look at that? Can you dig further? He wants to be absolutely sure and certain in what he's doing before he says something or before he does it. So you've got a real evidence-based due diligence in terms of his approach to doing things. And I've found it a lot in quite a few successful sports people, in all honesty, and business people, as I've moved through my career in the last 7-8 years. And I think you'll even find it if you read autobiographies of some of the great sports people as well, and business people. I mean, just looking at the shelf, there's people such as Phil Knight, the owner of Nike, Rafa Nadal, the tennis player, Pep Guardiola, although it's not his autobiography, it's a detailed account, a book called Pep City. And these people are extremely devoted to what they do. And people might think that they're training for 2 hours and they're playing for 2. They could quite easily spend another 4, 5, 6 hours thinking about it and gathering information and making the odd note to be sure.
Yeah. How do you think sports science helps unlock like the qualities of an elite individual, especially when they're starting off? So you know, you sometimes you see somebody and you know that they've got that extra little bit that that you need to be an elite sportsman, but how do you get sports science to unlock it?
I mean, sports science is a very, very broad topic. And, you know, when people study it, there are millions of little micro departments or subjects within it that you can wander into. But to sum it up, what sports science does do, it will give you data and it will give you numbers. So that could be a skin fold, which is your body fat. It could be the time it takes you to react to a flashing light. It could be the time it takes you to travel a distance in running. It could be the height at which you can jump. It could be the height at which you can jump after you've perhaps done some stretching and some yoga or pre or post exercise. So there are millions of little things in there, but what it gives you is data. So to take that down to a basic human resource, if you will, that will allow you to get better. You and I go down a gym, okay? So we can go down a gym this morning, we can walk in, and if we want, we can go on a bike and we can lift some weights and we can come out, and in our heads, we feel great. Or we can go down that gym and say, I went down yesterday and I bench pressed 83. So the minute you walk in, you're looking for 84. You can say that I rowed for 3,000 meters in 14 minutes. So you're looking to row for 3,000 meters in 13 minutes 50. So everything you approach, you're using that data. Then not only do you come out with that physiological feel good, which we had before without the data, but that's just the exercise producing endorphins. What you've now got some evidence. You're walking out there thinking, wow, I've bench pressed 85 instead of 84. I've done 3,000 in 13:50 instead of 14. So you feel better in an evidential basis because you've got some numbers to back it up. But what it also does, I think it creates that little bit of pressure as well, because no one feels the same when you go to the gym. So if you bench press 84, 85, 86, there's a day when you're walking in there thinking, oh, I've got to do 92 today. I've got to, and you have that feeling before you even walk in the place of being under pressure. Yeah. And it's just numbers and data. And anyone can use this in any walk of life. Salespeople have it. You made £5,000 this month, so you've got to make 6,000 next.
Okay, that's cool. That's a really, I'd never even thought about it like that, because ultimately you always think that sports science is like somebody sat in a darkened room with a laptop trying to work out sort of statistics that FIFA use on their computer game. But you're just talking about simple dynamics, and you're just simple, just a metric. This is my point where I want to hit, and all I'm gonna do is a small step forward, and eventually that steps forward makes it a large leap forward, doesn't it? Rather than a
exactly. That's just taking sports science and the psychology of goal setting into everyday life, really, that anyone can use.
We've seen a lot of players that quickly enter the scene. I probably speak. I don't want to talk about individuals, but there was one at Manchester United that ended up playing for West Ham, and I don't know where he's playing at the moment. With exponential quality, and they just don't seem to make it. But then you've got other players that work tremendously hard. Is that all down to mindset? Is that just their work ethos, or is there something else at play there?
There can be lots of factors, really. Most professional athletes to get to the level, certainly Premier League level, have got what you'd call a pretty decent lifelong commitment. So they probably started in the modern day around about 7 years of age, some maybe even earlier. And they've put the hours in. They have worked hard to get there. I mean, there's a theory out there by a professor called Anders Ericsson, who sadly passed away earlier this year. But he proposed that it takes 10,000 hours of training to become an expert in any domain. Now that's been widely advocated and widely criticised by some people. That happens in science. But when you dig in further and look at the specifics, what he also said, that these hours are quite compressed and deliberate, which what I mean by that is the conversation that we've just had. they're targeted. So you're not bench pressing 80 and going back to do 80 again and 80 again 6 months down the line. You're doing something with a purpose to try and get better. And the people that get to this type of level do tend to have that in them. Now, some of it intrinsic, self-driven, they've just worked it out, or they've been in an environment where that's around them, so they do it. Others, especially in football, they're in big systems these days where they're surrounded by coaches, data analysts, performance analysts, sports scientists, strength and conditioning coaches, where they literally fed numbers on a daily basis, which one or two things, it can drive them to be better, or other people, the pressure can get relentless and that can become a mental burden and a worry and a fear. So it might have an adverse effect in terms of them not being able to handle that. So you have got to find a balance. And then outside of that, and one of the big things that I found with Gary and I found with other athletes, they just live a good life. And I know that that is not something that is readily available to everyone, but they've had good family support. They've had good school. They've achieved reasonably well at school. They've been fed well. They've slept well. They've had good support in terms of being driven or taken to events. They've had wise advice in terms of when to rest and when to sleep. And just that sort of holistic human being thing does actually help these people push on really to the next level. It's certainly a key driver. But there are probably no two sports people the same. They've all got a lot of work in them and a lot of mileage in them. But it's very difficult to sort of say, here's a manual, here's a model, and this will make you a professional athlete. That's the holy grail that no one's found as of yet. But we have a fair idea what the behaviours and practices are for you to be the best you can possibly be.
So if you were going to talk to a young lad now, 14, 13-year-old at Manchester United, and he came to you for a little bit of advice about what he could do to make himself, a quality Premier League player in the future, what sort of advice would you bestow on him?
I think you've got to be an open book. In all academies, you're surrounded by qualified people and experts. Do your best. Don't worry if performance doesn't look like you want it to look on a daily basis, because at 13, 14, you're on a developmental trajectory that's got arguably 7 years to go yet, with Premier League debuts being made at 2021. Self-reflect, look at what you've done. Don't necessarily punish yourself if it's not going right in a particular match or a particular game. Look at some of the things that you've been working on during the week. You might have lost the game 3-0 and not feel too good about it, but if you were working on switching the play or hold-up play or overlaps, did those things come out in the game? So therefore, you've got something that you can take from it, because that's what you've been taught last week. Because it's a jigsaw puzzle, really. And sometimes results can be a little bit of a false indicator of where we're at. Because to be an elite athlete, at whatever sport, you have to have all these components to be able to draw on from your toolbox to deliver in the heat of the moment. So the big thing for me is, are you moving forward? Are you developing in all aspects of your game? Are you getting stronger? Are you getting faster? Are you able to reflect better? Do you understand the game more? Are you getting technically better? And look at these components. If they're going in the right direction and you feel good, can you turn the volume on and push them on a little bit quicker? If they've slowed down a bit, why is it? Are you tired? Have you overcooked it a bit? Do you need to turn the volume down? Because it looks like this. We've all seen these things on social media. It is not a linear line to get to the top. There will be ups and downs.
The last thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and I think it's for me anyways, particularly interesting because I haven't got a great deal of experience with it. And I know that you have some experience with it, would be like the self-reflection phase and mindfulness specifically in elite sport. How does that work for you?
Self-reflection, whether you're an athlete or a coach, I mean, I do it, you do it daily. You've just got to look at what situations you're in, what you've done, what you've delivered, what you've presented, and be humble enough to ask, was that good enough? Is there anything I can do better? And sometimes if you're not actually asking the sort of immediate people that you're impacting, can you compare your own performance to someone else that's elite in your field? I watch countless things and read countless things and read countless books and just try and stretch and push myself all the time. I recently watched one called The Test on Amazon about the Australian cricket team and their journey. What are they doing? What are them coaches doing? Could I do that better? Do I do that? In the gym this morning, I watched a documentary on the Ineos 159 with Uli Kipchoge, who was trying to, well, he did break the record. He ran a marathon in 159. And what are the team around him doing? How was it done? I only learnt for the first time that Dave Brailsford was actually part of that, whose background is in cycling with Team Sky and British Cycling. He obviously now works for Ineos anyway because they've taken over Team Sky. But they took a lot from cycling into that particular 159 project. They actually ran like a cycling team because runners don't run as a team. They ran in a cycling formation in terms of protecting the runner and keep him exposed to minimal wind, that type of thing. And it just allows you to be able to think, really, sometimes by looking at other things. Because I can get immersed in football, and sometimes you need to climb out of it. And you look at cricket, you look at the 159 project, or look at Formula One, because you're not feeling the pressure or you're looking at too much micro detail because you understand football, the simplest of things can just hit you from a different angle. And that's how I tend to self-reflect, really, and keep trying to push myself further and further. Mindfulness, that's sort of the practice of being in the present, and it's something that is coming into sport. It's been around for years. It sort of dates back to Buddhism and the sort of Zen masters, if you will, where they've got this sort of oneness or control over their own thinking for periods of time. And what sports people are trying to do is be 100% focused in what they're doing at the present. I mean, me and you are now on a podcast, recording a podcast. And a few seconds ago, I looked at my clock because I'm thinking I've got to pick my son up from school. Now, that's not me being in the present because I've got a thought of the future and thinking, well, I'll be late. So the minute that your brain goes there, you're not focusing on the podcast. So you've not got 100% to it. I'm not saying it's gone Oreo or awful, but I might have dropped to 95%. Someone else in the world might be at 96, 97. So if you've not got that 100% dedication, you must presume that there is room for someone to pass you or to beat you. And how it's sort of practiced and what I've seen in the sports world, you've got the sort of relaxation of the body and the ability to be able to understand the physiology of how you breathe and how you think, and then to transfer those thoughts to what it is you ought to be thinking of right now. So when you go into performance, you are 100% in performance. If you're preparing for performance, you are 100% thinking about preparing for performance. And it's quite a difficult thing to hold, is 100% concentration. When people first try it, you'll be lucky if you get a minute and a half, 2 minutes. But again, going back to what we said earlier, that's irrelevant. Just let's try and get 2 minutes, 2 minutes 30, 3 minutes, and you will be able to master the art. You know, we've probably all been where you're watching a TV program and someone comes in the room and sort of says, "Do you want a brew?" and you've just not heard them, and they repeat it. And that's sort of an example of you being in the zone. They're not there, or you've been walking around listening to a podcast and you've walked into a lamppost or tripped over the dog, but you're immersed in what you're doing. And it's that type of state that the human being is actually trying to get, but within a sporting performance. So not an easy thing to do, but certainly something
that measure of elite sport, though, isn't it? That ability to make sure that you're in that moment consistently, and you are.
Yeah.
I remember watching a podcast about Rio Ferdinand, and he was talking about something very similar. That he was always just thinking about that moment, and then he was just thinking about the next moment, and then the next moment, and
yeah,
not a lot of reflection, because that was past, and all he was thinking about was where he was right then and what he was going to be doing next.
Yeah, I mean, good examples are golf, because you've got one shot to the next, and this sort of 1 minute, 2 minute gap in between. You could have hit a bad shot, and that could be hanging around in your head and in your physiology for the 2 minute walk to the next one. But the next one is a different shot completely, so that has to go. Tennis is the same. Bad shot, lost point, but you've then got, if you're dwelling on what's gone, you are not giving 100% focus. And there's a fantastic story. It's probably, you'll probably be able to find it on Google, out there on the internet, of Mike Atherton, a particular innings that he played. I think it was over a day long. And it was just literally taking it ball by ball, minute by minute, not thinking of batting for over a day, not thinking of getting a 50 and then getting 100, literally thinking about this ball, not the last one or the next one. And then all of a sudden, I think he batted for 8 hours or something like that and saved a test match. The finer detail will be out there, like I say, on the internet, but he describes it very, very well in any interviews and newspaper articles that there are on that. And that's momentary focus that he has managed to extrapolate to a 7-8 hour block of sports performance, which is phenomenal, really.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you very much for coming on today as well. I must appreciate the effort, because I know we've worked together, but you've moved on now. You're now working for Man United again now. So congratulations on going back to that, if you got a job. But thank you very much. Good luck for the future. I hope you stay in touch.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, you stay in touch by all means. I'm sure we'll work together, and at some point, plenty other things on the boil. We're just waiting for this global situation to cool down a little bit and get to.
Sure, it will do, and hopefully the football will get back to normal as well. I'd hate to think about what the trials and tribulations of the sports science teams currently in the Premier League have to go through, because you're measuring the hours they're playing. It must be horrible to try and manage. Go to your manager and say he can't train today. He's overmaxed his hours, and the manager's like, "Well, I don't care. He's training." You know what I mean? No, I can't imagine that whatsoever.
We're in completely uncharted waters, and everyone's learning. So again, this is where that sort of composure and self-reflection is going to be key, because we're going somewhere we've never been before.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, and I will speak to you at a later date.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye.
Thank you very much for listening today. Very much appreciated. Please like and comment if you have anything to say to either me or David, and love to have your feedback, and I will see you soon. Bye.